Legends present Thomas the Tank Engine.
I mustn't be late, he thought. What shall I do? I can't stop.
There's plenty of excitement and lots of fun with runaway trains and last-minute rescues. It all adds up to great entertainment for kids.
Suddenly, like magic, the station was flooded with lights. Ladies, gentlemen, and children, I give you 3 cheers for Thomas the Tank Engine and all his friends. The race was on.
With storyteller Ringo Starr, watch Thomas and his friends get up to all kinds of adventures.
Horrors! Cried Thomas and shut his eyes.
This great new series of Thomas the Tank Engine is available on 3 individual cassettes from Screen Legends. On sale now at all leading high street multiple stores and good video shops everywhere. Here's another children's favorite from Screen Legends, the enterprising adventures of our friendly feline, Henry's cat.
Little blue men.
We are about to be invaded by little blue men from Jupiter. Invent something to stop them. I'll be back in 20 minutes.
Just one of the wide range of video cassettes available from Screen Legends, the very best in entertainment for kids. Henry's Cat is on sale now at all leading high street multiple stores and good video shops everywhere.
Meow.
Snow came early to the island of Sodor. It was heavier than usual. Most engines hate snow. Donald and Douglas were used to it. Coupled back to back, with a van between their tenders and a snowplow on their fronts, they set to work. They puffed backwards and forwards, patrolling the line. Generally, the snow slipped away easily, but sometimes they found deeper drifts. Presently, they came to a drift which was larger than most. They charged it, and were just backing for another try when... Lush sakes, Donald! It's Henry! Dinnot fesh yourself, Henry! Wait a while, we'll have you out. Henry was very grateful. He saw all was not well. The twins were glum. They told him that the Fat Controller was returning soon. He'll send us back for sure. It's a shame, said Percy. A lot of nonsense about a broken signal box, grumbled Gordon. That spiteful brake van too, put in James. Good riddance, that's what I say. They were splendid in the snow, added Henry. It isn't fair. They all agreed that something must be done, but none knew what. Percy decided to talk to Edward about it. What you need, said Edward, is a deputation. He explained what that was. Percy ran back quickly. Edward says we need a deputation. Of course, said Gordon. The question is, what is a desperation, asked Henry. It's when engines tell the Fat Controller something's wrong, said Percy. Did you say tell the Fat Controller? Asked Duck thoughtfully. There was a long silence. I propose, said Gordon, that Percy be our, disputation. Hi, squeaked Percy. I can't. Rubbish, Percy, said Henry. It's easy. That's settled then, said Gordon. Poor Percy wished it wasn't. Hello, Percy. It's nice to be back. Percy jumped. Yes, sir. Please, sir. You look nervous, Percy. What's the matter? Please, sir, they've made me a desperation, sir. To speak to you, sir. I don't like it, sir. The Fat Controller pondered. Do you mean a deputation, Percy? Yes, sir, please, sir. It's Donald and Douglas, sir. They say, sir, that if you send them away, sir, they'll be turned into scrap, sir. That would be dreadful, sir. Please, sir, don't send them away. Thank you, Percy. That will do. Later, the Fat Controller spoke to the engines. I had a deputation. I understand your feelings, but I do not approve of interference. He paused impressively. Donald and Douglas, I hear that your work in the snow was good. You shall have a new coat of paint. The twins were surprised. Thank you, sir. But your names will be painted on you. We'll have no more mistakes. Thank you, sir. Does this mean that the both of us... The Fat Controller smiled. It means... But the rest of his speech was drowned in a delighted chorus of cheers and whistles. The twins were here to stay. Thomas the Tank Engine has worked his branch line for many years and knows it very well. You know just where to stop, Thomas, laughed his driver. You could almost manage it without me. Thomas had become conceited. He didn't realize his driver was joking. Later, he boasted to the others. Driver says I don't need him now. Don't be so daft, snorted Percy. I'd never go without my driver, said Toby earnestly. I'd be frightened. Huh, boasted Thomas. I'm not scared. You'd never dare. I would then. You'll see. The next morning, the firelighter came. Thomas drowsed comfortably as the warmth spread through his boiler. Percy and Toby were still asleep. Thomas suddenly remembered. Silly stick in the mud, he chuckled. I'll show them. Driver said I could manage without him. I'll just go out. Then I'll stop and wheesh. That'll make them jump. Thomas thought he was being clever. Really, he was only moving because a careless cleaner had meddled with his controls. He soon found his mistake. He tried to whee, but he couldn't. He tried to stop, but he couldn't. He just kept rolling along. He didn't dare look at what was coming next. There was the station master's house. The station master was about to have breakfast. Horrors! Cried Thomas, and shut his eyes. The house rocked. Broken glass tinkled. Plaster was everywhere. Thomas had collected a bush on his travels. He peered into the room through its leaves. He couldn't speak. The station master was furious. His wife picked up her plate. "You miserable engine," she scolded. "Just look what you've done to our breakfast. Now I shall have to cook some more." She banged the door. More plaster fell. This time it fell on Thomas. Thomas felt depressed. Workmen propped up the house with strong poles and laid rails through the garden. Meanwhile, Donald and Douglas arrived. "Dinna fash yourself, Thomas. We'll soon have you back on the rails," they laughed. Donald and Douglas, puffing hard, managed to haul Thomas back to safety. Bits of fencing, the bush, and a broken window frame festooned his front, which was badly twisted. The twins laughed and left him. Thomas was in disgrace. There was worse to come. "You are a very naughty engine." "I know, sir. I'm sorry, sir." Thomas's voice was muffled behind his bush. "You must go to the works and have your front mended. It will be a long job." "Yes, sir." "Meanwhile, a diesel rail car will do your work."
"A diesel, sir?"
Thomas spluttered. "Yes, Thomas. Diesels always stay in their sheds till they are wanted. Diesels never gallivant off to breakfast in station masters' houses." Percy and Toby were worried. Thomas's recent accident had caused a great deal of trouble, and the Fat Controller was waiting for them with important news. "Here," he said, "is Daisy, the diesel rail car, who has come to help while Thomas is, indisposed." "Please, sir," asked Percy, "will she go, sir, when Thomas comes back, sir?" "That depends," said the Fat Controller. "Meanwhile, however long she stays, I hope you will both make her welcome and comfortable." "Yes, sir, we'll try, sir," said the engines. "Good. Run along now and show her the shed. She will want to rest after her journey." Daisy was hard to please. She shuddered at the engine shed. "This is dreadfully smelly. I'm highly sprung, and anything smelly is bad for my swerves." Next, they tried the carriage shed. "This is better," said Daisy, "but whatever is that rubbish?" The rubbish turned out to be Annie, Clarabelle, and Henrietta, who were most offended. "We won't stay here to be insulted," they fumed. Percy and Toby had to take them away and spend half the night soothing their hurt feelings. The engines woke next morning feeling exhausted. Daisy, on the other hand, felt bright and cheerful. "Ooh, ooh," she tooted as she came out of the yard and back to the station. "Look at me," she purred to the passengers. "I'm the latest Diesel, highly sprung and right up to date. You won't want Thomas's bumpy old Annie and Clarabelle now." The passengers waited for Daisy to start, but she didn't. She saw that a milk van was about to be coupled to her and was most indignant. "Do they expect me to pull that?" "Surely," said her driver, "you can pull one van." "I won't," said Daisy. "Percy can do it. He loves messing about with trucks." She began to shudder violently. "Nonsense," said her driver. "Come on now, back down." Daisy lurched backwards. She was so cross that she blew a fuse. "Told you," she said, and stopped. Everyone argued with her, but it was no use. "It's fitter's orders," she said. "What is?" "My fitter's a very nice man. He comes every week and examines me carefully. 'Daisy,' he says, 'never, never pull. You're highly sprung and pulling is bad for your swerves.' So that's how it is," finished Daisy. "Stuff and nonsense," said the station master. "I can't understand," said the shunter. "Whatever made the Fat Controller send us such a feeble, spluttered Daisy. "Let me—" "Stop arguing," grumbled the passengers. "We're late already." So they uncoupled the van, and Daisy purred away, feeling very pleased with herself. She could now enjoy her journey. "That's a good story," she chuckled. "I'll do just what work I choose and no more." But she said it to herself. Daisy, the diesel railcar's work in the countryside, was full of surprises. She was frightened of bulls and cows, and she remained very lazy and stubborn. One day, Toby brought Henrietta to the station, where Percy was grumpily shunting. "Hello, Percy. I see Daisy's left the milk again. I'll have to make a special journey with it, I suppose." "Anyone would think I'd nothing to do," grumbled Percy. "Tell you what," replied Toby. "I'll take the milk. You fetch my trucks." The drivers and the station master agreed. Percy had never been to the quarry before. He began ordering the trucks about. "Hurry along," he said. The trucks grumbled to each other. "This is Toby's place. Percy's got no right to poke his funnel up here and push us around." They whispered and passed the word. Pay Percy out! Pay Percy out! Come along, Puff Percy. No nonsense. We'll give him nonsense, giggled the trucks. But they followed so quietly that Percy thought they were under control. Suddenly, they saw a notice ahead. All trains stop to pin down brakes. Peep, peep, peep! Brakes, guard, please. But before he could check them, the truck surged forward. On, they cried. Help, help, whistled Percy. The man on duty at the crossing rushed to warn traffic with his red flag, but was too late to switch Percy to the runaway siding. Frantically trying to grip the rails, Percy slid into the yard. Peep, peep! Look out! The brake van was in smithereens. Percy's driver and fireman had jumped clear, but Percy was stranded. Next day, the Fat Controller arrived. Toby and Daisy had helped to clear the wreckage, but Percy remained on his perch of trucks. We must now try, said the Fat Controller, to run the branch line with Toby and a diesel. You have put us in an awkward predicament. I am sorry, sir, replied Percy. You can stay there till we are ready. Perhaps it will teach you to be careful with trucks. Percy sighed. The trucks groaned beneath his wheels. He quite understood about awkward predicaments. The Fat Controller spoke severely to Daisy, too. My engines work hard. I send lazy engines away. Daisy was ashamed. However, Toby says you worked hard after Percy's accident, so you shall have another chance. Thank you, sir, said Daisy. I will work hard, sir. Toby says he'll help me. Excellent. What Toby doesn't know about branch line problems isn't worth knowing. Our Toby's an experienced engine. Next day, Thomas came back. And Percy was sent to be mended. Annie and Clarabelle were delighted to see Thomas again, and he took them for a run at once. All are now friends, and Toby has taught Daisy a great deal. She shooed a cow off the line all by herself the other day. That shows you, doesn't it? Bill and Ben are tank engine twins. Each has 4 wheels, a tiny chimney and dome, and a small squat cab. Their trucks are filled with china clay. It is needed for pottery, paper, paint, and many other things. The twins are now kept busy pulling the trucks for engines on the main line and for ships in the harbor. One morning, they arranged some trucks and went away for more. They returned to find them all gone. The twins were most surprised. Their drivers examined a patch of oil. "That's a diesel," they said. "It's a wattle?" asked Bill. "A Diseasel, I think," replied Ben. "There's a notice about them in our shed. Coughs and sneezels spread diseasels. You had a cough in your smoke box yesterday. It's your fault the Diseasel came." "It isn't, it is." "Stop arguing, you two," laughed their drivers. "Let's go and rescue our trucks." Bill and Ben were horrified. "But the Diseasel will magic us away like the trucks." "He won't magic us," replied their drivers. "We'll more likely magic him. Listen, he doesn't know you're twins, so we'll take away your names and numbers, and then this is what we'll do." Puffing hard, the twins set off on their journey to find the Diesel. They were looking forward to playing tricks on him. Creeping into the yard, they found the Diesel on a siding with the missing trucks. Ben hid behind, but Bill went boldly alongside. The Diesel looked up. "Do you mind?" "Yes," said Bill, "I do. I want my trucks, please." "These are mine," said the Diesel. "Go away." Bill pretended to be frightened. "You're a big bully," he whimpered. "You'll be sorry." He ran back and hid behind the trucks on the other side. Ben now came forward. "Truck stealer!" hissed Ben. He ran away too. Bill took his place. This went on till the Diesel's eyes nearly popped out. "Stop! You're making me giddy!" The two engines gazed at him. "Are there two of you?" "Yes, we're twins." "I might have known it." Just then, Edward bustled up. "Bill and Ben, why are you playing here?" "We're not playing," protested Bill. "We're rescuing our trucks," squeaked Ben. "Even you don't take our trucks without asking, but this Diseasel did." "There's no cause to be rude," said Edward severely. "This engine is a Metropolitan Vickers Diesel Electric Type 2. The twins were abashed. "We're sorry, Mr. Never mind," the Diesel smiled. "Call me Boko. I'm sorry I didn't understand about the trucks." "That's all right then," said Edward. "Now off you go, Bill and Ben. Fetch Boko's trucks, then you can take this lot." "There's no real harm in them," he said to Boko, "but they're maddening at times." Boko chuckled. "Maddening," he said, "is the word." Thomas's branch line is important, and so is Edward's. But their track and bridges are not so strong as those on the main line. The Fat Controller does not allow the heavier mainline engines like Gordon to run on them. But one day, the way Gordon was talking, you would have thought the Fat Controller had given this order for quite another reason. "It's not fair," grumbled Gordon. "What isn't fair?" asked Edward. "Letting branch line diesels pull main line trains." "Never mind, Gordon. I'm sure Boko will let you pull his truck sometime." Gordon spluttered. "I won't pull Boko's dirty trucks. I won't run on branch lines." "Why not? Would be a nice change." "The Fat Controller would never approve," huffed Gordon. "Branch lines are vulgar." Gordon puffed away. Edward chuckled and followed him to the station. Every evening, the two engines pull two fast trains from the station. Gordon always leaves first with an express for the main line. Edward follows 5 minutes later with his train for the branch line. Usually everything runs like clockwork. But tonight there was trouble. A lady in a green floppy hat was saying goodbye to a friend. It was nearly time for Gordon to start. The fireman looked back towards the guard's van and saw something green waving. "Right away, mate." He thought the guard had waved his flag. Gordon started, leaving luggage, his passengers and the guard all standing on the platform. Everyone was very surprised and cross. To make matters worse, by the time Gordon had been stopped and brought back, Edward was already late with his train. So now he set off first. But the signalman at the junction wasn't told about the change. By mistake, he sent Edward along the main line. Gordon was sent along the branch and arrived cold and cross on one of the sidings near the harbour. Next morning, Bill and Ben peeped into the yard. There were no trucks for them, but they didn't mind that. Teasing Gordon would be much better fun. "What's that?" asked Bill. "Shh," whispered Ben. "It's Gordon." "It looks like Gordon, but it can't be. Gordon never comes on the branch lines. He thinks them vulgar." Gordon pretended he hadn't heard them. "If it isn't Gordon," said Ben, "it's just a pile of old iron, which we'd better take to the scrapyard." "No, Bill, this lot's useless for scrap. We'll take it to the harbour and dump it in the sea." Gordon was alarmed. "I am Gordon. Stop, stop!" When Boko suddenly arrived, Gordon thought him the most beautiful sight he had ever seen. "Boko, my dear engine, save me!" Boko quickly sized up the situation and threatened to take away the trucks he had brought for Bill and Ben. This made the twins behave at once. Gordon thought he was wonderful. "Those little demons, how do you do it?" "Oh, well," said Boko, "it's just a knack." Gordon still believes that Boko saved his life, but we know the twins were only teasing, don't we? Bertie the bus was giving some visitors a tour of the island of Sodor. It was their last afternoon, and Edward was preparing to take them to meet Bill and Ben. He found it hard to start the heavy train. "Did you see him straining?" asked Henry. "Positively painful," remarked James. "Just pathetic," grunted Gordon. "He should give up and be preserved before it's too late." "Shut up," burst out Duck. "You're all jealous. Edward's better than any of you." "You're right, Duck," said Boko. "Edward's old, but he'll surprise us all." "I've done it, we're off! I've done it, we're off!" said Edward as he finally puffed out of the station. Bill and Ben were delighted to see the visitors. They loved being photographed. Later, they took the party to the China Clay Works in a brake van special. Everyone had a splendid time, and the visitors were most impressed. Then Edward took the visitors home. On the way, the weather changed. Wind and rain buffeted Edward. His sanding gear failed, and his fireman rode in front, dropping sand on the rails by hand. Suddenly, Edward's wheels slipped fiercely. With a shrieking crack, something broke. The crew inspected the damage. Repairs took some time. "One of your crank pins broke, Edward," said his driver. "We've taken your side rods off. Now you're like an old-fashioned engine. Can you get these people home? They must start back tonight." "I'll try, sir," promised Edward. Edward puffed and pulled his hardest, but his wheels kept slipping and he could not start the heavy train. The passengers were anxious. Driver, fireman and guard went along the train, making adjustments between the coaches. "We've loosened the couplings, Edward. Now you can pick your coaches up one by one, just as you do with trucks." "That will be much easier," said Edward. "Come on," he puffed, and moved cautiously forward. The first coach moving helped to start the second, and the second helped the third. "I've done it, puffed Edward. "Steady, boy," warned his driver. "Well done, boy. You've got them, you've got them." And he listened happily to Edward's steady beat as he forged slowly but surely ahead. At last, battered, weary, but unbeaten, Edward steamed in. Henry was waiting for the visitors with the special train. "Peep, peep!" The fat controller angrily pointed to the clock, but excited passengers cheered and thanked Edward, his driver and fireman. Duck and Boko saw to it that Edward was left in peace. Gordon and James remained respectfully silent.
And every year on the date of the accident, it runs again as a warning to others, plunging into the gap, shrieking like a lost soul.
Percy, what are you talking about? The ghost train. Driver saw it last night. Where? Asked Thomas and Toby. He didn't say. Oh, it makes my wheels wobble to think of it. Huh, said Thomas. You're just a silly little engine. I'm not scared. Thomas didn't believe in your ghost, said Percy next morning. His driver laughed. Neither do I. It was a pretend ghost on television. Percy was disappointed. That evening, he came back from the harbour. Percy knew where he was, even in the dark. Crow's Farm Crossing. We shan't be long now. He liked running at night. The rails hummed and the signal lights shone green. But a broken cartload of lime lay ahead. Sam the farmer had just gone for help. Percy broke the cart to smithereens. Lime flew everywhere. He puffed quickly to the nearest signal box. Percy's driver explained what had happened. I'll see to it, said the signalman, but you'd better clean Percy or people will think he's a ghost. Percy chuckled. Do let's pretend I'm a ghost and scare Thomas. That'll teach him to say I'm a silly little engine. Toby promised to help. Thomas was being oiled up for his evening train. Percy's had an accident, cried Toby. Poor engine, said Thomas. Botheration! That means I'll be late. They've cleared the line for you, but there's something worse. Out with it, Toby. I can't wait all evening. I've just seen something, said Toby. It looked like Percy's ghost. It said it was coming here to warn us. Huh! Who cares? Don't be frightened, Toby. I'll take care of you. Pee, pee, pip, 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 pee. Let me in! Let me in! Wailed Percy. No, no, not by the smoke of my chimney, chim. I'll chuff and I'll puff and I'll break your door in. Oh dear, exclaimed Thomas. It's getting late. Oh, I'd no idea. Oh, I must find Annie and Clarabel. It was morning when Thomas returned. Where have you been? Asked Toby. Ah, well, said Thomas. I knew you'd be sad about Percy, and I didn't like to intrude. I slept in the goods shed, and... Oh, sorry, can't stop. Got to see a coach about a train. Percy was none the worse for his adventure and was still enjoying himself enormously. He had heard everything. Well, 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 what do you know about that? Anyone would think, chuckled Toby, that our Thomas had just seen a ghost. In summer, the gangers cut the long grass on the line side, raking it into heaps to dry in the sun. At this time of year, Percy stops where they have been cutting. The men load up his empty wagons and he pulls them to the station. Toby then takes them to the hills for the farmers to feed their stock. Whee! Percy gave a ghostly whistle. "Don't be frightened, Thomas," he laughed. "It's only me." "Your ugly phiz is enough to frighten anyone," said Thomas. "You're like..." "Ugly indeed. I'm a green caterpillar with red stripes," continued Thomas firmly. "You crawl like one too." "I don't." "Who's been late every afternoon this week?" "It's the hay." "I can't help that," said Thomas. "Time's time, and the fat controller relies on me to keep it. I can't if you crawl in the hay till all hours." "Green caterpillar indeed," fumed Percy. He set off to collect some hay to take to the harbour. "Everyone says I'm handsome, or at least nearly everyone. Anyway, my curves are better than Thomas's corners." "Thomas says I'm always late," he grumbled. "I'm never late, or at least only a few minutes. What's that to Thomas? He can always catch up time further on." All the same, he and his driver decided to start home early. Then came trouble. A crate of treacle was upset all over Percy. Percy was cross. He was still sticky when he puffed away. The wind was blowing fiercely. "Look at that!" exclaimed the driver. The wind caught the piled hay, tossing it up and over the track. The lion climbed here. "Take a run at it, Percy," his driver advised. Percy gathered speed, but the hay made the rails slippery, and his wheels wouldn't grip. Time after time he stalled with spinning wheels and had to wait till the line ahead was cleared before he could start again. Everyone was waiting. Thomas seethed impatiently. 10 minutes late. I warned him. Passengers'll complain and the fat controller. Then they all saw Percy. They laughed and shouted. "Sorry I'm late," Percy panted. "Look what's crawled out of the hay," teased Thomas. "What's wrong?" asked Percy. "Talk about hairy caterpillars," puffed Thomas. "It's worth being late to have seen you." When Percy got home, his driver showed him what he looked like in a mirror. "Bust my buffers! No wonder they all laughed. I'm just like a woolly bear. Please clean me before Toby comes." But it was no good. Thomas told Toby all about it. Instead of talking about sensible things like playing ghosts, Thomas and Toby made jokes about woolly bear caterpillars and other creatures which crawl about in hay. They laughed a lot, but Percy thought they were really being very silly indeed. It was 2 days before Christmas. Many children were expected on the island of Sodor. All the engines were busy with the final preparations. The Fat Controller wanted this year's carol party to be an extra special celebration. The Fat Controller was now waiting impatiently for Thomas. "Quickly now," he said. "Our Christmas tree has arrived just in time. I want you to fetch it, Thomas. Duck can look after Annie and Clarabelle until you get back." "Will we be able to sing carols too?" asked Thomas. "We'll see," promised the Fat Controller. It would be nice to sing carols again, sighed Thomas, as he set off on his important mission. Thomas collected the tree safely, but large snowdrifts lay ahead. "I mustn't be late," he thought. "The Fat Controller is relying on me." Whistling bravely, Thomas tried to move, but he couldn't. There was worse to come. Poor Thomas was snowed under. Meanwhile, the other engines waited and waited. They were grumbling about Thomas for being late. "Silence," said the Fat Controller. "Thomas left the works safely, but snow has brought the telephone lines down. We must assume he is stranded." The engines now felt sorry for Thomas, and cold but confident, the twins set off to the rescue. Suddenly, they came to a drift that was deeper than the rest. "Hush!" said Donald. "I can hear something." "Probably the wind," said Douglas.
Help!
"No, listen," insisted Donald.
Over here!
"Look, it's Thomas. Come on, the poor wee engine must be frozen to the frames in there." When the workmen arrived, it took some time to decide how to dig away the heavy drifts of snow. Thomas's driver and fireman, who had taken shelter at a nearby cottage, joined the rescue. At last, Thomas and the precious Christmas tree were freed from the snowdrift. Then they set off once more to finish their long journey. The Fat Controller greeted them warmly. "As a reward for all your hard work, you may go and enjoy the carols. Be quick now." At the big station, all was soon ready. 1, 2, 3. Suddenly, like magic, the station was flooded with lights. "Ladies, gentlemen, and children, I give you 3 cheers for Thomas the Tank Engine and all his friends who have made this occasion possible." Suddenly there was a strange whirring sound. Percy and Toby smiled. They knew who it was. With landing lights shining brightly, Harold the helicopter touched down gently in the snow. Bringing the greatest surprise of all, Father Christmas. Everyone cheered and the party began. "It's no fun getting stuck in the snow," whispered Thomas to Percy, "but it was worth it for this party. Happy Christmas, Percy. Happy Christmas, everyone."